You're always good. You're so relaxed. Well, welcome into this special 25-26 PWHL preview edition of the Puck Drop podcast. And we're lucky enough to have our favorite friend of the show, as they say, Becky Kellar. Welcome in, Becky. How are you today?
Thanks, I'm doing well. How are you?
Very good. It's so good to see you after what was a long off season, as everybody has said. How did you find it? Are you ready to get going?
Yeah, you know what? It's one of those things that the season ends in May and you kind of head right into summer, and so it's kind of an easy transition, right? You're into summer, my kid's playing baseball, but then all of a sudden like the NHL starts and hockey's going, and then you're kind of chomping at the bit to get back at it. So I'm glad it started a little earlier than last year. We're 9 days earlier than
Yeah.
last November 30th, so a little bit earlier. So yeah, I think everybody's ready to get back to it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let me ask you right off the top because you went out west to visit one of the new expansion teams. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it was great. So, caught a couple of the preseason games between Vancouver and Seattle, got a chance to see what Pacific Coliseum is going to look like in their new home. And, because they've had to sort of do some renos there to get it ready for a TV audience again and a few things. So they wanted to do a little bit of a test run on the broadcast. So we went out there, a bunch of us, and yeah, it was nice just to sort of get a first look before our first real broadcast, and also take a look at the two teams and see how they're coming together. And I'll say what it was a massive difference between the first preseason game and the second one. Like the first one seemed pretty tentative. The second one did not. Like the hits and the speed, and so it's pretty cool to see it take that big a leap within a day. But it'll be nice to see them with their actual rosters on the ice.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, we're starting to see some of the, the cuts, and I don't think the big ones have come yet. I think they, just released some of the names. But well, what was your impression? Because we didn't get to watch those games, but quick impression of both squads, especially in the second game, maybe who caught your eye or what did you see?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get a full idea of what each of the teams is going to look like when some of their better players aren't in the lineup each night. Like Hillary Knight, Knight Carpenter, Belko were on a line together for Seattle, but they only played in game one, so you didn't get a full look. Nurse was only on the ice in game one, so you don't get a full feel of the depth of those rosters. But I look at Vancouver and I think really they've built from the back end out. I mean, I feel like Mashmeyer was arguably the best goalie in the league prior to her injury. She was outstanding, I thought, last year. So if she can bring that, you're looking at a Vancouver team that is extremely deep in net, and then also on the back end. I mean, their defense core is pretty stellar. So,
Yeah.
Jakeson Thompson, obviously, Yob Smith wasn't in the lineup, she's still fighting an injury, but I think she can have a real impact. As I go over it, Greco, Watkins, Channel Watkins, solid defensive D. Ashton Bell, I thought was really, really good last year. Kind of underrated a little bit, but so I think their back end is really good. That's what I'm sort of watching for them. And then I just think up front, Seattle, that top line especially, um, and then after that, it's kind of a wait and see to figure out who's going to do what. Jesse Eldridge had a great year last year. I think Serdachny maybe is looking for a new fit. Things didn't work out so great for her last year, but there's obviously a lot of potential there. Julia Gosling, who's got a lot of potential. So I think they could be a really strong team offensively. So I guess we'll start to find out on Friday when we actually see the full roster in effect.
Yeah. Well, that was one of our topics. So maybe I'll just kind of piggyback on that with my question about, we talked about expansion when it happened, and you were kind of more relaxed than others about, well, just let's wait and see. But Vancouver scooped up those big free agents, and you know, um, do we feel like we're looking at these super teams, or do you think it's just on paper and like, let's wait and see?
Honestly, it seems to me that it's early to say. They do look good. They do look deep. They're going to have their holes just like everybody else, I think. Um, but every year there seems to be players that underperform compared to what they did the year before. And then there's players that just sort of come out of the woodwork and you're like, where did they come from? A lot of this is going to hinge on how are your draft picks, right? Are your draft picks fourth liners that have no real impact, or does someone roll in um, and they have an unbelievable season? Obviously, Sarah Fillier was fantastic last year, everything as advertised, but Danielle Serdachny wasn't last season. So, how does that play out? Somebody could have a draft pick that they got later on you ever go back and you look at the drafts from the first year and you look at where people were drafted?
Yeah.
Daryl Watts, Hannah Miller, Michaela
Yeah.
Cava. Like you look at where
Sixth,
they were
seventh.
drafted.
Yeah, I think Hannah Miller was seventh round, and yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they were all so low that you think, how is that even possible? So, scenarios like that are going to play out for sure, where, somebody might come out of the woodwork and they were a low draft pick or a camp invite that got signed and they're a lot better than you thought they were. So I'm not sure I'm ready to make a bold prediction at this stage of the game. Um, I think some teams appear stronger than others, but we'll have to wait and see.
Okay, so Becky does not sign off on the super teams concept just yet. We'll see. I don't know. I think well, that actually does kind of segue nicely into what I made some notes on, and we're not going to go team by team because I think that's just it's too hard. But if something kind of comes up about a team, we'll definitely throw it in. But what I'm feeling, and this, I'll get your view. Do you think the league has started to separate into tiers? And I'm not picking on the lower teams, but maybe we've got a couple of teams there out west that look really strong. Maybe we've got Ottawa, Boston, New York that were really picked over in expansion. Do you think there's a top, a middle, and a lower, or are you just like, no, let's wait and see?
Well, again, I'm not 100% sure because it seems like the past 2 years, Minnesota, the team that's won it all, has done so by and large because they've had four lines that could all go and contribute. And you look at playoffs and Minnesota's fourth line comes up with these huge goals. So sometimes it becomes more depth. Obviously, goal scoring is going to be huge. Like if you don't have the ability to put pucks in the net, and that was Ottawa at the start of last year, right? I don't think anyone ever predicted based on how they played the first half of the season that they were going to make the Walter Cup final because they couldn't score. And then all of a sudden, like Emily Clark comes alive and a bunch of their players sort of come alive. So,
Vanishova, yeah.
yeah, Venishova, she was pretty solid, kind of throughout, but they definitely had some players. Like I go back and take a look at their roster. They had some players that it took them a little while to get going. Yeah, Hughes took a while to get going as well. So, I mean, there's players that, and Mrazova was injured most of the year, but so who's going to be able to find that person that can put pucks in the net? I don't know if I would subscribe to New York being that team, only because of the potential they got out of the draft. Kelton Kova and Casey O'Brien could come step into this league, I think, and potentially have an impact right away. So I'm not so sure that I would lump them into the teams that I don't think will do well. Granted, I've said that for like this is 3 years in a row. I'm like, New York's pretty good. I think New York's
We
pretty
want
good.
to we want to pause there because I for some reason they are really fascinating. I want to dig into them, but before we do that, just a lot of people eyed Boston as a team that got hit hard. Obviously Hillary Knight and Hannah Bilka leaving, Emily Brown, who was really good on the blue line, and now it looks like they're making some cuts that might be a little surprising. I don't know if we can announce those yet, but I'll go ahead and take the risk. I think Chloe Orard is going to be cut, and I think Lauren Gable is going to be on the reserves. Uh,
Yeah.
so I don't know. I mean, they've got Erin Frankel as a backbone, but do you look at them as like maybe a little question mark?
Um, what I would say is they're a team that struggled for offense in the past, and now they lost Hillary Knight, who led the league in points last year. So where are they going to get their offense from? And I believe it was Toronto that had said, different philosophy by committee. Can each line win their shift? So it's almost like the whole Moneyball thing where you watch that movie and you got to look at things differently. And so maybe it becomes that like,
Yeah.
can we win our shift? We got a goaltender that may allow you to have a bad shift and come out and even and not give something up, which is huge. I mean, Aaron Frankel, the value that she brings to that team is it's just immense, obviously. So I just think for them, how are they going to figure out how to put pucks in the net? And I think that might be the difficulty for them.
Yeah, and Ottawa as well. I mean,
Yeah.
they're just kind of suffering a lot of challenges with, the arena stuff that's looming. But I mean, they lost Ashton Bell, they lost Venisheva, as we said. Aneta Teralova is gone from their back end. Mashmeyer, I mean, they've got Phillips, of course, who's awesome, but
Yeah.
I
Well,
think,
I would honestly, I would say one of those two goalies had to go. And I had said that last year. There's no way you can have two starters of that caliber on the same team. Neither of them are going to want to tolerate being a backup goalie because they're not backup goalie caliber. So
yeah,
you knew that was going to happen. And I don't think that's necessarily that big a deal for them. Some of the other losses for sure. Now, with that being said, if they can keep Mrazova healthy all year, I mean, really, she did not play a whole lot. And when she did, I think we all questioned if she was
right.
100% then, right? And then she went back and she played Worlds, comes back, and you're like, I don't think that she's at 100%. If she is, she can be a game changer. So that might kind of fill the void where, Venisheva left. If Emily Clark can start where she left off, um, you might start to see some of them fill the voids. And then, what are their draft picks look like? It's hard to say. It's not an easy league to step into and make a real impact right away. But yeah, again, I would say solid, solid in net. And
They picked up
maybe
Rory Gilday on the back end, which is a nice addition.
well, that's huge, right? And that goes a long way to replacing one of the two D that you've lost for sure. So yeah, I think it's goal scoring for them again. I think that's maybe where the question mark would be. I'm not so sure because they got Gilday and because their goaltending is so good that it's the necessarily the back end. Now, with that being said, that's a team that sometimes struggled to get out of their own zone at times in the past. Um, so sometimes it's hard to create offense when you're not coming out of your zone as a kind of a cohesive unit, connected and get down the ice with speed. So if they can do that, that's a start.
Yeah. Um, just with that, it was reminding me, we did hear that the playoffs are going to be the top four teams again. I thought they might try to squeeze in a play-in round or something, but so that makes it pretty competitive. You've got to be, half the teams aren't going to make the playoffs. How do you think that affects play during the season?
Well, it's a 30 game league to start with. So, I mean, from the drop of the puck, every game is absolutely crucial. And if you were to look at the NHL, and when do you get to that point in the season where you're really looking at the standings and you're trying to figure out, can this team make the playoffs? You're probably at least 30 games left. Like, maybe even 40 games, the kind of the halfway mark. So, based on when this season starts, you're already at crunch time, to my way of thinking, 30 games. So, yeah, every game is absolutely important. So, you really can't come out and have a sleepy first 10 games. It's a third of the season, right? Whereas you can get away with that in the NHL at 82 games. So, I think from the first puck drop, you're looking at the standings and you got to figure out how to become a cohesive unit right away and develop chemistry right away because it's obviously important.
Yeah, we were talking with the Scepters about their slow starts the past 2 years, and that's something that they want to concentrate on. We'll see. They get to face Minnesota right away, so we'll find out pretty fast. But all right, I want to talk about the Sirens. I don't know why. Like you said last year, I think we both said, well, with Philly now, and they had some bad luck in year one, and they weren't as bad as their numbers looked. And then for whatever reason in year two, they went through that slide that just knocked them right out. But I mean, Pascal Daou is a fascinating GM, not afraid to make the big moves. So he goes for the big trade. They lose Alex Carpenter, and Corrine Schroeder. So I don't know. What do we make of it? Are we gonna try again and say no, they're gonna take a step, or how do you feel about New York?
Well, I mean, who knows exactly what the reasoning was behind them underperforming. But they did seem to really shake up the team, so maybe that was part of it, maybe development time in the NCAA. So I do think players can make an impact right away. I think Kaltunkova, because she's big and strong and physical in a physical league, could really thrive. Haven't had enough time watching Casey O'Brien, but clearly a natural goal scorer. So possible that they could fill some voids through the draft. And obviously, they had to be going for that if they're going to trade away a seasoned veteran um, for some draft picks. So once again, I will say they're intriguing, and I think that I mean, they could win it all, or they could come in eighth. Hopefully they don't. I'd hate to see that team actually get worse from their last place finish over the last 2 years, but I do think that they have some intriguing players on their team.
Yeah, and we have to think Fillier, even though
She was tied with Knight,
oh,
29.
just tied for first. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if she can take another step, but at the rivalry series, she looked great, and now she's wearing the assistant captain A. What do you think we're going to see from her this season?
Yeah, I think she's got to have players on her line that can play with her and can play at speed with her. So, finding someone two players that can play with her will be huge. But absolutely, a player of her age, could she take another step? I would say, yeah. I mean, when you hit 30 to 35, maybe that step's not coming. You're going the opposite direction, but not when you're in your mid to early 20s. So I do think that you could see more from her for sure. But again, it's going to come down to finding some chemistry.
Hey, just a quick break to let you know that you are our only source of funding. This podcast is 100% independent, brought to you by you. No advertising, no interruptions for betting or gambling sites. It's so easy. All you have to do is send your donation to us at PayPal, GameDay HKY, GameDay Hockey at gmail.com. It really makes a difference. You can also do a super thanks on YouTube or hit the support button on Spotify. Or just send us a monthly donation or anything you can afford. GameDay Hockey, HKY at gmail.com. Thanks for your support. Our next topic I want to hit is the Olympics. I mean, wow, this year is just the schedule's kind of, on and off, and it's hugely challenging for players. I imagine you played in the Olympics, but the year was probably more geared toward the Olympics. You weren't trying to split your attention. Do you think, the start of the season, it has some of that like tryout, kind of like the players that are maybe on the bubble trying to use their PWHL season as a statement to get on their teams?
Oh, it absolutely is. And I mean, the PWHL's completely changed how the national teams are picked. And you've seen players come in that I think, had this league never existed, would never had a chance. Daryl Watts would not be wearing a Team Canada jersey without the PWHL, or Hannah Miller, so I do think that this year is a tryout. I mean, normally in an Olympic year, like Canada and US anyway, centralized with their national teams. You play all year. Your coach sees you every day, and that's your tryout. So when they don't have that, and a limited rivalry series at the very start of the year can only count for so much, I would think. They're really going to have to look at the season. So yeah, if you feel that you're a bubble player and you're trying to make this team, this season's pretty crucial.
Yeah, I'm thinking of, for Canada, you've got players like Kristen O'Neill, Brianne Jenner didn't play the rivalry series. And Troy Ryan was talking about the players that are going back to the NCAA. Chloe Primorano, I think she's on the team, but it is harder for them to gauge, and they have to kind of let other coaches take that responsibility of continuing to get players ready. But do you think it affects the other way around? Does it affect the PWHL season? I mean, they're off from January 29th to February 25th, basically an entire month, plus the international break in December for rivalry series and some more national team camps. How do you think that affects it the other way? I mean, it becomes a really long season for those players.
Yeah, it does. And largely because of the travel as well, I would think. You've already seen some of the travel with the European players in this league. Um, I think after 2 years of it, though, they've had breaks for the World Championships kind of in the middle of the season too, that they did just to it. I almost think it's more difficult for the players that are left behind, because if you're not on your national team and you're not going to the Olympics, you have an entire month of practicing without it getting boring, which I mean, you play hockey to actually play hockey, not to practice. So I think it's almost harder for the players that get left behind to stay in game shape. And obviously that comes down to the coaches and what they're able to do with that group that's left at home. The ones that go over, it's managing fatigue levels, but they're going to come back like, peak form when they step back into the league, so long as they can stay healthy and uninjured. But yeah, it's a difficult challenge for sure, for both sides of it. But I do think it's their third year of doing it to a certain degree. So it's not like in year one. In year one, everything was new. Playing this many games was new. The physicality was new, and it was really taking a toll on players. I didn't think it was as bad last year. You didn't hear about the fatigue as much leading into playoffs, I didn't think. So I think, some of them have their head around it and they can manage it a bit better.
Yeah, and um, I'm sure you watched the rivalry series. It was a bit of a, rude awakening for Team Canada. I think the NCAA players on Team USA made a difference, but what was your impression there? Is Canada in trouble?
You know what? I honestly, and again, it'd be so easy to turn into a full Chicken Little. Oh my God, the sky is falling. But we've seen this before. It's not the first time. I mean, we saw it all year in 2002.
I
Um,
know someone
maybe
mentioned that.
but
Like,
yeah, we got stomped all year by the US. And I mean, it's the Olympics. It comes down to, one game. Should you get to the gold medal game? Obviously, it's tightened up. That semifinal has gotten pretty competitive as well. So, but I think it's a wake-up call to a certain extent. The 6-1 game is interesting though, because I actually thought Canada was the better team for two and a bit periods,
yeah,
but they couldn't score. So, the question, I guess, is that going to be is that a problem? Obviously, Team USA had no problems putting the puck in the net when they had opportunities. I don't know if you can completely chalk that up to NCAA versus PWHL players too, because Taylor Heisey was fantastic. Hillary Knight had a hat trick, and they're obviously not playing in the NCAA. So
yeah,
Canada's got some work to do. May have bode well for their older veteran players who got left off the roster too. Sometimes you don't earn your spot. Somebody else plays himself out of a spot. And so, you might see that happen as well, where it's like, you start to value a LaRock, bring her back in for some stability, or um, so who knows going forward. The next couple of rivalry games would be pretty important, I would think, in
yeah,
that evaluation piece.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm not gonna all doom and gloom that one quite yet. I mean, if this was mid-January and that happened, I might be a little bit more panicked, but certainly not at this point.
I love it. Whenever I guess I am more on the Chicken Little side of things, but
Well, I'm only saying this because I mean I've been there before. I mean we had this, and again we lost 8 games in 2002, and some of them, and I would say routinely we were outshot in those games 2-1. Like, I mean, so it was not just losing; it was heavily getting outplayed. And so you use that to build. Now they don't have the opportunity, obviously, to build as a group together all year. They've split up again. But it might give you a sense of what it is you need to do and where you need to get better.
yeah. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I mean, someone who's been there has the perspective of what it takes, and like you say, the one game winner take all. It's it's really crunch time. I don't have a good segue for this one, so let's just pivot to breakout players in the PWHL. Like you mentioned, I think there are, since expansion, people will have elevated roles. So there are some names you could look at that are taking things on. Since I'm watching Toronto carefully, we know Emma Malte is at least going to start the year as the first line center. Be great to see her take a jump. My personal pick, I've said it, I've put it out there. It's Jessie Comfer. I think, I mean, she already had a much improved second season, and I think that's true of NCAA players. The first year is a big adjustment. Second year, they kind of at least show what their game is, and then I think with an elevated role for her, I see that happening. I'm looking maybe someone like Hannah Bilka, who had some tough injuries, but now she's out on a stacked Seattle team. So if you scan your roster sheets there, like breakout, I mean, really noticeable, like Hannah
Yeah.
Miller, I think would be your prototype from last season.
Well, I would agree with you about Bilka. I think she's good. She's a really good player, and her points per game was pretty high last year. It's just that she only played 14 games. So, and then like you said, she currently seems to be sitting on a stacked line with Carpenter and Knight. So that, I mean, that just bodes well for racking up points. So I think she could have a huge year. Um, for sure. Again, I would look to a couple draft picks like Kaltunkova, Casey O'Brien. Can those two have exceptional years? There's some players too that their year last year wasn't as good, like a Haley Skamora. Can she get that point production back up and become really good secondary scoring out in Montreal? I think maybe she could. Same with a Kelly Panic. Like she just has an outstanding world championships, but I mean, she went huge stretches without points last year for Minnesota. So, another player that if she can, and we're not saying you got to score 25 and 30 points, but like, if you can get your production up into the teens for some of these players, it would just make, a world of difference. I would look to Mrazova as well. Again, an injury issue, but was one of Ottawa's leading scorers in year one. And I think that she could be again if she's able to stay healthy. Injuries have kind of plagued her though. Um, and so sometimes, once a player gets kind of has the injury bug, sometimes they struggle to shake it at a certain point. But I would imagine, you could probably go team by team and pick out one or two people that you think maybe could be that person to have that year. I agree, Confer on Toronto. I think she really sort of found her started to find her way. Some of these players too, I think when you look at them having a breakout year, it's where they're put in the lineup.
Yeah.
I saw Michaela Grant-Mentis score an unbelievable highlight reel goal in game 2 of the preseason. And I'm like, she could be one of those players because she's just going to sit quietly down in the third line. She's not going to get the hard matchups, right? So sometimes it's a little bit of that too, where a player, if they kind of get bumped down in the lineup, all of a sudden they're quietly putting up some points because they're not necessarily getting the difficult matchups. Obviously, if you're on Hillary Knight's line, you're getting
Yeah.
the top line or top shutdown line and top shutdown pair put out against you as often as possible.
What a name just came to my mind. What are you expecting from Michelle Carvinen? I think that's a fascinating storyline. I don't know if she's in the top six out there on Vancouver, but she's already experienced, so she's not coming in as she has to adjust, but she's not a raw rookie. Do you think she has a big season?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because all of a sudden you're coming over here and we've seen players that come out of the SDHL who are putting up a point a game or more, and they struggle to get even a couple of points in this league. Now, with that being said, she's a proven player on the international stage, albeit older, later into her career right now. So it's funny. I've often had the same thought. I'm like, what's she going to be like? First,
Yeah.
first round draft pick. She's smart. So I do think she'll adapt to this league. And the players that come out of the SDHL don't seem to necessarily have a problem with the physicality,
Yep.
like the players maybe coming out of the college leagues. So I don't think, she's going to be an MVP conversation by any stretch of the imagination. But I do think she could be one of those players that, put some points up in the teens is kind of what I'm
Yeah.
guessing, hoping. I think 10 to 15 points on the season. I think you'd be ecstatic if you could get that out of her.
Yeah, I think depending on power play is a big one as well. They're so stacked, they can put together two really good power play units, but I could see her on one of them and she is big enough to handle the size. Do you think that was a kind of not a reach, but were you surprised to see her taken seventh overall?
No, only because, well, for two reasons. I mean, again, if this was, um, if this was the NHL, you would not maybe value a player at that age as much. But because most of the contracts here are a year, 2 years, yeah, why not? Um, I think she brings in leadership as well. So, you're a brand new franchise. I think you want as many positive voices in the room as you can get. I'm guessing that she's a player that could probably play throughout your lineup. It doesn't have to be a top six kind of thing. So I think you could probably put her Maybe I wouldn't necessarily say the fourth line, but maybe on the third line and still get production out of her, play a role. Um, you know, a little more limited minutes, which is maybe actually important when you hit 35 with the physicality and the travel and stuff that she'll have to go through with playing with Team Finland as well. Um, yeah, I mean, I think I look at someone like Kaltun Kova, I'm like, she's gonna be good.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
look at Karvinen, I'm like, I'm not really sure what to expect.
right. Yeah,
Right? I'm really not sure what to expect. But I do think that what you will 100% get is probably leadership and work ethic from her.
yeah.
And that goes a long way with a new team.
Yeah, she's a great competitor. I have to ask, since we just mentioned the 35-year-old age threshold, which I don't think is as big for women. I think you and I have mentioned that before. But our friend Natalie Spooner here in Toronto, what are you expecting there? I don't know if you've had a chance to see her skate or hear the reports, but she looks noticeably more comfortable with her stride, and she's on the top line here. So, I mean, are you anxious to see what she replicate that season? Probably not, but what do you expect?
I wouldn't put my money on her replicating that season because that was just phenomenal. And no one
Lightning in
obviously
a bottle. Yeah, that was,
absolutely. And listen, there's not one team or GM that predicted that because I believe she got special status to be in Toronto and they all agreed that she was a fourth round pick, which is essentially seventh round because that year everybody picked three players before they even went into the draft. So everyone agreed that that's where she should be. So yeah, lightning in a bottle for sure. But I would suspect that, last year was difficult, obviously sitting out half the year, coming back, you wonder if she's 100% because she got back pretty quick, given the nature of the injury. Um, so somewhere in between the two, I would certainly hope the production's going to be better, but I would not. I think everybody in the fan base is like, oh, she's going to be back to season one form, and I just don't see it happening. I
yeah,
just don't. I
yeah,
mean, she
no,
does the things she does well, though. She's going to go north-south hard. She's going to go to the net hard.
yeah,
And in this league, that's of huge value. Some of your like smaller, skilled, like east-west kind of players haven't always succeeded. But your north-south big bodies tend to. So, I mean, she has that. And if her feet are moving the way they were in year one, I would suspect that she's certainly going to be a lot better than last year.
yeah. It's good to see. The one thing I always hope for is no injuries whenever whether it's regular season or these, especially those international events, always seem to knock somebody out and so difficult. But okay, here's my let's see if there's a segue. Well, Natalie Spooner won MVP in year one, and we know Poulin deservedly won in year two. And so are we kind of looking at it like it's Poulin's trophy to lose, or are there other realistic candidates like Hillary Knight out in Seattle, or anybody else that you think has a really strong shot along? I think Poulin is always in the conversation.
Always, always. She's the most complete player in the league, I think. Blocking shots, killing penalties, playing defensively, throwing hits. I mean, she is a beast. And saw the one game where she threw a couple heavy hits and players stopped wanting to go into the corner with her. And, who could blame them? I mean, she
Yeah.
absolutely rocked a couple players throughout the course of the season. So, I mean, she really is a complete player. And so I think you know what you're going to get from her. Always, always in the conversation. Is it a lock? Absolutely not. Not when, Hillary Knight led the league in scoring last year and Fillier is sitting in New York. She was tied for the league lead in scoring. Alex Carpenter could always be a person that's in that conversation. Again, is there a rookie that can all of a sudden step in like Fillier did and have an outstanding year? Taylor Heisey,
Yeah.
uh, I mean, she's one that you look at the start of her year at the rivalry series and you think, well, she may be in that conversation as well. So there's definitely players that are going to be in it. Now, if you said you're going to pick your own team, build your own team, who's the first person you would pick and put on it? Poulin 100%. Like there's not even a question in my mind. She's the first person that I would put on it. I said that in year one too. When Spooner was the MVP, I'm like, yeah, Spooner deserves to win the MVP. However, if I'm picking a team, the first person I take on it is Poulin.
Yeah, I think those are names. I don't know if there's any sort of dark horse candidates that jump into my mind. I was thinking of Taylor Heisey as well, based on how she looked in the rivalry series, and again that third year I think is she's comfortable. She's going to have to elevate a little bit on that Minnesota roster. I'm trying to think of anybody else that could completely break out. I mean, a lot of it is scoring. We did see Renata Fast enter the conversation.
Yeah.
So maybe not strictly as MVP, but what defenders would you look at for that award?
Well, Fast had an outstanding season, and I think she can replicate that for sure, especially
Yeah.
if she's Ella Shelton beside her. That team looks pretty strong on the back end this year. So she'd be in the
Shel-
conversation.
Shelton, I think, has been in the conversation both years, so maybe she jumps back in and actually claims it this season.
Yeah, Shelton could be in the conversation. Megan Keller has always been, I didn't think she was as good last year as first year, but she's obviously got the potential. I mean, I think the decor in Boston, she had however many points they had, she had over for 50% of them. So she is the offense from the back end on that Boston team. And I think she's a really good 200-foot player as well. So, I mean, she's one that could jump into the conversation. Kayla Barnes,
Mm.
um, and sometimes I think she almost kind of flew under the radar a little bit too, only because Aaron Ambrose sometimes was the PP1 quarterback. Kayla Barnes would come out on PP2, and I don't think that's going to be the case for her this year. I think she'll be quarterbacking the power play. And of course, Jakes and Thompson. I mean, Sophie Jakes was exceptional last year. Claire Thompson's going to be on the scoreboard for sure, on a team that looks like they're not going to have any problems scoring goals. So, and there's a lot of D that could be in the conversation. You're right. It often comes down to points. Not fully. I mean, you can't be such high risk, high reward that you're giving too much up on the back end and expect to be named the bestie in the league. I think that's where someone like Renata Fast has a real advantage with her skating because she can take risks, and then recover and get back. Right. So, I mean, if I'm coaching her, I'm telling her to take risks that I'm telling everyone else they can't because she can cover for herself.
Yeah, and I think she led the either defenders or the entire league in hits,
Yeah.
one or the other, or
I
penalty, so she does not shy away from that either. So yeah, great to see her. I do
think
think,
Manisheva had the penalty minute lead.
oh, probably.
Yeah.
I think our friend Cheryl Pounder did, and Kenzie did the top 25, and I think they ended up with Renata at number two, second behind only Poulin
Right.
in their top five, which I think is very accurate.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna kind of jump through the last couple topics. So we've already talked about the rookies. Do you think it's Calton Kova sort of with a head start? Casey, Haley Wynn, any of those first rounders look pretty strong. Do you have your eye on somebody for that particular award?
Um, yeah,
Nicole Gosling, Jenna Buglioni, Haley Wynn, Emma Gentry. Um,
um it's yeah, it's this is always an interesting topic of conversation because some players just don't adapt to this game the way that you'd think they would. I mean, I would say going into the season, the prediction would be Kaltunkova for the simple reason that she's also big and strong and can handle the physicality. And sometimes there's question marks around um, some of the other players as to whether they can handle that. And I would suspect she'll put up some decent points, be on a good line. Um, it's not that often that a D wins that award,
mhm.
right? So when you look at some of the other, top end draft picks, I mean, maybe they have a fantastic season, but I'm guessing that it's probably going to be won by a forward. So I'd say she's my front runner for sure. Um, yeah, and then after that, who knows? I mean, Casey O'Brien, can she score at the same level? Well, not at the same level as she did in the NCAA. Nobody does that, but can she put up some good points? Obviously, a natural goal scorer, possibly. I'm interested to see Nicole Gosling after having been left off of Team Canada and what she can bring
Yeah,
as well to this league. Haley Wynn, who I think is going to be outstanding.
yeah,
Um,
she's dynamite.
for Boston. So, but I would say if I had to put a prediction down, I'll say Kaltunkova. I mean, it's not really a hot take when you're in the first overall pick, but I think she's the first overall pick for a reason.
Yeah, as you said, the ingredients are there. Plus, she is going to have to take on a big, big role right off the bat. So, she's going to be sort of at the starting gate really fast on that one. That's all the hot topics I had. I want to just find out if I'm sure you won't make a prediction, but as a champion, are there any like predictions or like storylines that you would be willing to kind of stake a claim and say, I expect to see something?
Well, let's see. Based on who I think is going to score goals, who do I think is maybe going to make the playoffs this year? Um, Vancouver, Seattle. Can I say New York? Because I just
Yeah,
really want them to make it.
let's
I
let's
really
just
want them in there. And then to me, it would come down to Toronto or Montreal. Um,
jeez.
yeah, it's gonna be interesting, and I think one of the reasons that they opted to just go with the four teams making playoffs as opposed to maybe more playing games or whatever is that it's come down to the wire 2 years in a row, and the expectation is that it's going to be the same again. So it's almost g going to feel like playoffs coming down the stretch. It certainly did the last 2 years. So I think that's part of the reasoning as to why they went with the four teams. But man, is it ever going to be competitive to be one of those four teams? So um, I'm sure a lot of people aren't going to like the fact that I would predict both expansion teams, and certainly
Wow.
could be wrong because when you bring teams together like that are so new, we were going over for the first broadcast, let's do a spreadsheet of where these players came from. And it's like, two from Boston, two from New York, two from Toronto, two from this many from the NCAA. So I mean, they're coming from all over. Um, so can they figure it out and get it all together right away versus teams that have a bit more familiarity? That's obviously a piece of it, but I'll predict they're both going to make it. And then I'm going to go with, oof, boy, this is tough. It's Toronto, Montreal, and New York for me. I have a feeling Ottawa and Boston are going to be, um, because I just don't. I think they're going to struggle to score goals, but we'll go Toronto, New York. Let's
Okay.
do it.
Wow. Montreal fans, you can find Becky on Twitter
I
at
know. Did I really just put my money against Poulin? That might have not been very smart.
never a
Don't
good
make
idea.
playoffs for sure.
I
You
actually,
got to say something.
I think that Montreal did a great job kind of rebounding after expansion and re-upping those players and the kind of the solidarity of that team. And I just don't think Poulin is going to be denied, although the Olympics is going to be a bit of a monkey wrench. But I could see Montreal winning it all if everything goes, the way that they would like.
Well,
So
they got the goaltending too, right? So, and again, that's huge. And the goalies in this league are so good, but there's obviously all of the goalies, and then there's like your Frankel and your Debians. The
exactly.
world that are just consistently have always been good and can win games. So, I mean, they have that too. So, I don't know. It'll be tight, I think. It's going to be tight.
When you say it that way, it's like it's a knife to the heart. Like, there's going to be at least a couple teams that are heartbroken. There might be some that fall off, like this past season, but I don't know. That's going to be tough to.
And listen, I just made that prediction and I didn't say Minnesota either.
I
So
know.
there's people like, are you crazy? They've won 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
And I would never count them out because I think Ken Cleve does a really good job of developing the depth of his team. So they just consistently are throwing at you, a full roster of players. Got two goalies that can interchangeably take the net. So, I mean, who knows? And again, some really good draft picks that have helped to compensate. I'm
Yeah.
interested, I mean, for myself personally, watching Kendall Cooper with Minnesota. She's from Burlington. A friend of mine, a good friend of my husband and I's, their son played AAA boys hockey with her here in Burlington. And he used to rave about her. He's like, a lot of times when they're going through, once they hit, at the time it would have still been called Bantam, so whatever it is, U15. Once they hit hitting, they cut all the girls. Like most of them leave on their own, but they couldn't cut her. She was too good. She stayed and played a year of contact with the boys at AAA here in Burlington. I think she was the assistant captain. And he's like, yeah, she's just too good. So I haven't seen her play really in a very, very long time, through all her years at Quinnipiac, and she kind of pulled herself right out of the Team Canada program for a number of years. So I'm really curious to see how she does. I think she's tough, smart, moves the puck well, and I think she could be a real asset.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. So, speaking of Burlington, I just want to find out kind of what your own season looks like. You're still assistant coach there with that team, and I imagine you're doing a lot of the broadcasts. Where else can we find Becky Keller?
Yeah, so I'm helping with the Barracudas junior team, as often as I can, which now that the season starts, it gets a little bit more sporadic. The head coach of that team is taking over Oakville's junior team next year, so I'm actually going there with him.
Oh,
So
okay,
we're
good.
we're we're kind of moving down the highway. Um, and then between that and my son committed to UConn this
Oh,
year
okay, gotcha.
play
Nice.
baseball. So I'm taking him down for his official visit in December, and which is pretty cool because there's 5 girls currently on the Yukon women's hockey team that I used to coach in Burlington, and there's 2 more on our current team going next year. So seems to be a real sort of connection there, which is kind of cool. So he got picked up by them. He's going there next year. He's a pitcher. So there's been a lot of baseball and stuff like that over the off season. So little still kind of busy with that, and then after that.
Outstanding. Do you know how many games I mean, there are more games overall this year, and I know you've stuck kind of close to the Canadian cities. Is that the same plan for this year?
Yeah, we have our broadcast schedule up till the Olympics. And so it's a bit of a mixed bag because there's some takeover tour games in there as well. So looks like right now I'll be in Denver and Halifax, Hamilton, which is great 'cause it's right down the
Right.
road.
Yeah.
So there's some of that. A couple trips to Vancouver. Um, so which is good. And then a lot of Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, which is easy travel. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's fun. And I mean, it's been great. The people I work with are fantastic. It's always a good time, especially around playoffs, because then there's a huge group of us and it's like being on a hockey team again, except it's a
Yeah.
broadcast. We have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're doing as much traveling as a lot of the teams, it sounds like. It's right around the corner. It starts up we're recording this on a Wednesday and we're gonna have the first game on Friday. So a little bit of news yet to come on final roster cuts, but otherwise, here we go.
Can't wait. Can't wait to see these rosters too.
Well, appreciate the time, Becky. I mean, always great insight and
Well, and listen, we can't pick our winner because as per normal, if Minnesota is able to like squeak their way in, then who knows what they can do. 2 years in a row, just squeak into playoffs, win it all.
all bets are off once the
All
playoffs
bets
start up. That's for sure. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much again. We hope to see you again during the season on the podcast if you've got time for us. But appreciate everything you've done with us today.
Thank you. Take care.